November 1918. Two men creep through the darkness beneath a wooden church, their lanterns casting eerie shadows across the dirt floor. Father Edward Podlaszewski and sexton Jacob Please aren't here for prayer. They're here to uncover a secret that's been buried for 11 years. With a potato fork in hand, they begin to dig. What they find will shake the very foundations of their tight-knit Polish community in northern Michigan. The bones they unearth belong to Sister Mary Janina, a vivacious young nun who vanished without a trace on August 23, 1907. But these aren't just any remains. Cradled within the skeleton lies the tiny bones of a fetus, revealing a scandal that would tear through the Holy Rosary Catholic Church like wildfire. Before we dive deeper into this haunting mystery, make sure to like this video and subscribe. This is a story that will stay with you long after it ends, revealing how far people will go to protect their secrets and the devastating consequences when the truth finally surfaces. What happened to Sister Mary Janina during those final moments in 1907? Who was responsible for her death? And why did it take 11 years for justice to begin? August 23, 1907 dawned as Baking Day in the village of Isadore, Michigan. This Polish immigrant community operated on strict schedules. Each day of the week had its designated purpose. The settlers who had crossed Lake Michigan from Milwaukee seeking better opportunities maintained their old-world traditions in this new land. Sister Mary Janina was born Josephine Mazek, the third child of Jan and Josephine Mazek, who immigrated from Poland in the late 1800s. Tragedy struck early when both parents died, leaving 9-year-old Josephine orphaned. She was sent to live with the Felician nuns in Detroit, where she discovered her gifts for music, learning piano and developing a beautiful singing voice that would later make her memorable to the Isadore community. At 18, she took her religious vows in 1901, becoming Sister Mary Janina. Unlike the typical reserved demeanor expected of nuns, Sister Janina possessed an outgoing, vivacious personality that made her stand out. She loved to sing while walking through the woods around Isadore, her voice carrying through the trees. This joyful nature, unusual for a woman of faith, would later fuel speculation about her character. In August 1906, Sister Janina arrived at Holy Rosary Catholic Church to serve as the leader of their school, managing 200 students. Many children boarded during harsh winter months, and the families held deep respect for the education their children received. Sister Janina worked alongside two other Felician nuns, the older Sisters Angelina and Josephine, all three staying through the summer of 1907 rather than returning to Detroit, as their tuberculosis benefited from the fresh northern Michigan air. That fateful Friday morning, Father Andrew Bieniawski prepared for a fishing expedition to Carp Lake with his sister Susan and Gruba, the chore boy. The atmosphere at the rectory was tense, largely due to the sharp-tongued housekeeper Stanislawa Stella Lipczynska. Stella had grown increasingly critical of Sister Janina, openly telling parishioners, "That one is no good as a nun." Her duties go unfinished. What particularly disturbed Stella was witnessing Dr. George Fralick and Father Andrew attending to Sister Janina alone in her room, a violation of strict Catholic protocols. Such private meetings between men and nuns were absolutely forbidden, and Stella regularly shared her concerns with other parish women. Before the fishing party departed, Sister Janina announced she needed to retrieve paper flower decorations from the church basement cellar. The decorations were needed for an upcoming celebration, and she planned to collect them before taking her afternoon rest in her cell. It was a simple, routine task that should have taken only minutes. Sisters Angelina and Josephine settled in for their daily nap, a practice that helped manage their tuberculosis symptoms. Sister Janina left her most precious possessions, her rosary beads and prayer book, on her windowsill. For a devout nun, these items were never left behind. They were as essential as breathing, but Sister Mary Janina never returned from that basement. By evening, when Father Andrew's fishing party came back, she had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only questions and a community that would never be the same. When Sisters Angelina and Josephine awoke from their afternoon rest, they immediately noticed Sister Janina's absence. The discovery of her rosary and prayer book still sitting untouched on the windowsill sent chills through the convent. No nun would ever leave these sacred items behind. They were carried everywhere, essential tools of their faith. The sisters began the first search, calling out through the wooden church and checking every room. Sister Janina was known to enjoy hiking through the surrounding woods and swampland, often singing as she walked. Perhaps she had simply lost track of time in the beautiful northern Michigan wilderness. When Father Andrew returned with his fishing party that evening, concern escalated into organized action. The priest immediately launched a more systematic search, enlisting parishioners from the tight-knit Polish community. These immigrants had crossed Lake Michigan together, supported by organizations like the Polish American Insurance Company and Polish National Alliance. Their loyalty to one another was absolute. When one of their own was missing, the entire community mobilized. Father Andrew spared no expense in the search efforts. He hired professional bloodhounds, their keen noses tracking through the dense forest surrounding Isadore. When conventional methods failed, he even employed a clairvoyant, a desperate measure that reflected his growing panic. The clairvoyant claimed to have visions of Sister Janina being held captive in a home near Glen Lake, several miles away. Acting on this information, the Empire Sheriff conducted a thorough search of the property. They found nothing, no trace of the missing nun, no evidence of any struggle or captivity. A week after the disappearance, Sheriff Kanukin officially joined the investigation. By this time, rumors were spreading through the community like wildfire. Some whispered that Sister Janina had simply left religious life, unable to cope with the isolated, conservative nature of their community. Her unusual, outgoing personality had always made some parishioners uncomfortable. Perhaps she had decided convent life wasn't for her. Adding fuel to the speculation, witnesses reported seeing a strange buggy in the area on August 23rd. Could someone have offered Sister Janina a ride? Had she willingly left with this mysterious visitor? The buggy sighting became a crucial piece of evidence, suggesting the possibility of voluntary departure or potential abduction. The community's response revealed the deep bonds that held them together. Families organized search parties, combing through miles of wilderness. Men left their farm work to join the effort, while women prepared meals for the searchers. The Catholic faith that anchored their community also provided hope. Surely God would protect one of his devoted servants. But as days turned to weeks without any trace of Sister Mary Janina, hope began to fade. The forests had been searched thoroughly, neighboring communities questioned, and still no answers emerged. The mystery deepened with each passing day, leaving a wound in the heart of Isadore that would fester for 11 long years. November 1918 brought an entirely different kind of excavation to Holy Rosary Catholic Church. Father Edward Podlaszewski had arrived with grand visions. He wanted to replace the humble wooden clapboard structure with a magnificent Roman-style brick church featuring 13 stained glass windows. These weren't ordinary windows, but masterpieces created by Franz Xavier Zettler, a renowned Vatican artist whose work graced churches across Europe. The precious stained glass panels were carefully stored under sawdust in Munich, Germany, waiting for safe passage across the Atlantic. World War I had just ended, but shipping such delicate artwork remained dangerous. Father Edward's dream church would have to wait, but preparation could begin. That's when Bishop Edward Kozlowski shared disturbing rumors with the new priest. Whispers had circulated for years about something buried beneath the church, something that could destroy the parish's reputation if discovered during construction. Father Edward knew he had to investigate before construction crews, or worse yet, parishioners, stumbled upon whatever lay hidden in the basement. On a cold November evening, Father Edward enlisted the help of Jacob Flees, the church sexton. Armed with lanterns and a potato fork, The two men descended into the dirt-floored basement beneath the wooden church. The flickering lanterns cast dancing shadows on the walls as they began their grim task. The soil gave way easily under their digging, too easily for ground that should have been undisturbed for decades. What they uncovered defied their worst fears. Human bones emerged from the earth, unmistakably the remains of a woman, based on the skull structure and bone size. But the discovery became infinitely more shocking when Jacob's lantern illuminated a smaller skeleton nested within the larger one. The tiny bones of a fetus lay cradled within Sister Mary Janina's ribcage. Father Edward's mind raced through the implications. A pregnant nun represented the ultimate scandal in Catholic doctrine. Not only had Sister Janina broken her vow of chastity, but someone had taken her life, along with her unborn child. The revelation threatened to destroy everything the parish had built over the past decade. The condition of the remains told their own story. Sister Janina's skull showed clear signs of traumatic injury, fractures that suggested violent death rather than natural causes or accident. After 11 years in the damp Michigan soil, the bones had been preserved well enough to reveal these crucial details. Working by lamplight, Jacob carefully lifted the skeletal remains into a wooden crate. Every bone had to be collected. Leaving any evidence behind could lead to discovery by others. The weight of their secret pressed down on both men as they realized the magnitude of what they'd found. Father Edward made a decision that would haunt him for years to come. Rather than report the discovery to authorities, he instructed Jacob to secretly bury the crate beneath the large cross in the cemetery. The scandal had to be avoided at all costs. The tight-knit Polish community had faced enough hardship immigrating to America. They didn't need this devastating blow to their faith and reputation. Jacob Flees, bound by loyalty to his priest and community, carried the crate into the darkness and buried Sister Mary Janina for the second time. The secret might have remained buried forever if not for a teenage girl's pregnancy and a priest's guilty conscience. Father Edward Podlaszewski found himself facing an eerily similar situation to the one that had claimed Sister Janina's life 11 years earlier. Martha Miller, a teenager who worked as a housekeeper at Holy Rosary Church, was pregnant. Like many young women in desperate situations, she stubbornly refused to reveal the father's identity. Father Edward, perhaps recognizing the dangerous parallel to past events, agreed to help her discreetly. He arranged for Martha to stay at St. Joseph's Hospital in Ann Arbor until the baby was born and given up for adoption, promising to bring her home after 6 weeks. During the return journey on January 24, 1919, something compelled Father Edward to confess. Perhaps the weight of his knowledge had become unbearable, or maybe he saw an opportunity to unburden himself to someone who understood secrets and shame. He told Martha about the discovery of Sister Janina's bones beneath the church. Martha listened with recognition dawning in her mind. She remembered the singing nun who had walked through the woods, whose joyful personality had seemed so unusual for a woman of faith. She had heard the rumors after Sister Janina's disappearance, whispers that the nun had simply left religious life because she couldn't adapt to their conservative community. The 6 weeks away from Isadore had transformed Martha. Giving birth alone, surrendering her child to strangers, and surviving the experience had given her a new strength. She was no longer the frightened teenager who had hidden her pregnancy. With this newfound confidence, she made a decision that would change everything. Martha confessed to her father, Joseph Miller, revealing not only what Father Edward had told her about Sister Janina, but also the shocking truth about her own situation. Father Edward was the father of her baby. The priest who had promised to help her, who had appeared so compassionate, had been the source of her predicament. Joseph Miller wasted no time. He immediately contacted Sheriff Knukin, setting in motion the investigation that would finally bring Sister Mary Janina's murder into the light. The discovery of her remains could no longer be hidden, and the circumstances surrounding her death demanded answers. The investigation quickly focused on 2 individuals from Sister Janina's time at Holy Rosary. Father Andrew Bieniawski and his housekeeper, Stanislawa Stella Lipczynska. Both had been reassigned after Sister Janina's disappearance in 1907, with Stella choosing to follow Father Andrew to his new parish in Manistee, a decision that now seemed suspicious. The 4-hour journey north from Manistee brought the pair back to face questions they thought they'd left behind forever. The cohort had served alongside Sister Janina and the other Felician nuns, witnessing the daily tensions and conflicts that had simmered beneath the surface of the seemingly peaceful parish. Father Andrew's alibi proved solid. His fishing expedition on the day of Sister Janina's disappearance was well documented and witnessed by multiple people. But Stella's situation was entirely different. She had no verifiable alibi for that crucial Friday afternoon, and her openly hostile attitude toward Sister Janina had been witnessed by numerous parishioners. The investigation revealed a pattern of antagonism that painted Stella as someone with both motive and opportunity. Her critical comments about Sister Janina's character, her anger about the nuns' private meetings with Father Andrew and Dr. Fralick, and her presence at the church during the crucial time period all pointed toward her involvement. The arrest of Stanislawa Stella Lipczynska in 1918 marked the beginning of one of Michigan's most controversial murder trials. Taken to the jail in Leland, Stella faced interrogation methods that would be considered torture by today's standards. Sheriff Kanukin employed psychological warfare, confiscating her rosary, her primary connection to faith, and subjecting her to a macabre, staged encounter with Sister Janina's bones. In a candlelit room, Sheriff Kanukin arranged Sister Janina's skull with a moving jaw, creating a horrifying puppet that repeatedly accused Stella. "You killed me. You killed me." The trauma of this experience, combined with isolation and intense pressure, began to break down Stella's mental state. The authorities planted Polish-speaking detective Mary Janina in Stella's cell, posing as a fellow prisoner to extract a confession. According to Janina's testimony, Stella confessed to stunning Sister Janina, digging a grave beneath the church, and repeatedly striking the nun's head with a spade when it kept rising up through the dirt. A confession obtained through manipulation and psychological torture. The trial, on July 29, 1919, drew national attention. The Leland courtroom's 100 seats filled with reporters from Chicago and New York, while Stella's own daughter Mary sobbed throughout the proceedings. Despite requests for a change of venue, the judge forced the trial to continue in the hostile local environment. The evidence presented a troubling picture of investigative misconduct. A letter signed "Protestant Pup" claimed Sister Janina had simply left religious life voluntarily. Handwriting experts determined Dr. George Fralick had written this letter, suggesting he knew more about Sister Janina's fate than he admitted. Yet Judge Martin Brown refused to allow this crucial evidence before the jury. Medical testimony proved inconclusive. While Dr. Fralick and Dr. Slepika claimed the skull fracture caused Sister Janina's death, a pathologist from Chicago testified the fracture occurred after death. The prosecution's case relied heavily on Stella's coerced confession and her antagonistic reputation, rather than solid forensic evidence. In a poignant moment during the trial, the Felician sisters requested permission to pray over Sister Janina's remains. The judge allowed them to encircle the table of bones and recite final prayers for their sister, who had never received last rites. Stella was convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison. The Michigan Supreme Court upheld the ruling in 1920, despite the excluded evidence that might have pointed to Dr. Fralick's involvement. Justice eventually arrived through an unexpected champion. Father Andrew Bieniawski, who had been cleared of suspicion, fought tirelessly for Stella's release. In 1927, he successfully appealed to Governor Alex Groesbeck, who granted Stella parole after 8 years in prison. Stella moved to Milwaukee to live with her daughter Mary and found work as a housekeeper for the Felician Order of Nuns, a bitter irony given her conviction for murdering one of their sisters. She died in 1961 at age 92 having lived most of her life under the shadow of a murder she may not have committed. The murder of Sister Mary Janina represents more than just a tragic crime. It reveals the dangerous intersection of secrecy, power, and justice in early 20th century America. The case exposes how communities, even those built on faith and moral principles, can become complicit in covering up terrible truths to protect their reputation. Dr. George Fralick's letter claiming Sister Janina left voluntarily, combined with his private medical visits to her room, suggests a far more complex truth than what emerged at trial. His potential involvement in either an illegal abortion or the murder itself was never properly investigated, allowing the community to scapegoat Stella Lipczynska instead of confronting uncomfortable questions about respected authority figures. The interrogation methods used against Stella, psychological torture, staged supernatural encounters, and planted informants, demonstrate how the pursuit of justice can become perverted by prejudice and desperation. Her conviction relied more on her abrasive personality and coerced confession than credible evidence, highlighting the vulnerability of immigrants and working-class women in the American justice system. Perhaps most tragically, Sister Mary Janina herself was lost in the sensationalism surrounding her death. This young woman who loved to sing in the woods, who brought joy and energy to her teaching, became reduced to scandalous headlines and courtroom exhibits. Her dreams, her faith, her contributions to the Isadore community, all overshadowed by the circumstances of her death. The Holy Rosary Parish eventually built Father Edward's dream church with its 13 magnificent stained glass windows, creating something beautiful from the ashes of tragedy. The community moved forward, but the case left permanent scars on their collective memory, forever known locally as the tragedy. Today, Sister Mary Janina's story serves as a reminder that truth and justice don't always align, and that the powerful can manipulate circumstances to protect themselves while the vulnerable suffer the consequences. Her memory deserves better than the conspiracy of silence that surrounded her death for over a century. If this case moved you, please like this video and subscribe for more investigative stories that uncover forgotten truths. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe justice was truly served, or did the real killer escape punishment? Some mysteries may never be fully solved, but Sister Mary Janina's story reminds us why we must never stop seeking the truth.